He had $106 in his bank account. His wife was pregnant. His dog was starving. He had been rejected by every single person he had ever asked for a chance. And he made a decision that day not to give up, not to take the money, not to let someone else live his dream. That decision, made by a broke man in a Hollywood apartment that smelled like failure, became one of the greatest movies ever made. This is the real story they never finished telling you. Before we go any further, I need you to understand what $106 actually means. $106 is not a dramatic number from a Hollywood script. It is the exact figure reported in a 1976 New York Times review of a film called Rocky, written 1 year after Stallone had that exact amount in his bank account. $106. His wife was pregnant. His bull-mastiff dog, named Butkus, was so hungry that Stallone could no longer bear to watch him. He had no car. He could not pay his rent. He had been homeless. He had slept in a New York bus station for 3 consecutive days because he had nowhere else to go. He had been rejected by casting agents so many times that the rejections had stopped feeling like events and started feeling like weather, just the permanent condition of his existence. And he had, at some point in the preceding months, done something so desperate, so painful, so far from anything he had ever imagined for his life, that he has spent decades trying to explain it without it defining him. He sold his dog for $40, and he walked away crying. Now, keep that image in your mind. A man walking away from his dog, the one living thing that had stayed beside him through every rejection, every eviction, every empty plate, walking away with $40 in his hand and tears on his face. Keep that image, because everything that happens next in this story flows directly from that moment, from the decision a man makes when he has hit the floor, not whether to get up, but how. July 6, 1946, New York City. A boy is born in the charity ward of Hell's Kitchen, one of the roughest neighborhoods in one of the most unforgiving cities in the world. His name is Sylvester Stallone, and from the very first moment, the world makes it clear that his path will not be easy. During delivery, a doctor uses forceps incorrectly during a difficult labor. The damage is immediate and permanent. The lower left side of Sylvester's face, his lip, his chin, part of his tongue, is left partially paralyzed. He will grow up with slurred speech, a drooping lower lip, a voice that casting directors will spend the next 30 years telling him is unacceptable. He will be told his face is wrong, his voice is wrong, his physicality is wrong. Before he has lived a single day, the world has already written its verdict on him. He will spend the rest of his life proving that verdict is not a sentence. His parents, Frank and Jackie Stallone, are not a stabilizing force. They fight constantly and loudly. They separate and reunite with an unpredictability that becomes the defining rhythm of his early childhood. When Sylvester is around 9 years old, his parents divorce. He is sent to foster homes, more than one. Over several years, he is the kid who doesn't belong anywhere. Not in his parents' home, not in the foster home, not in school, where the slurred speech and the drooping face make him an immediate target. He is expelled from multiple schools, 15 schools over the course of his childhood. Some accounts say more, not because he is violent, not because he is stupid, because he is restless, because he is angry, because he is a boy who has been told by every system he has ever encountered, home, school, body, face, that he does not fit. But here is the thing about Sylvester Stallone that even the difficult years could not extinguish. He was obsessed with stories. From childhood, he consumed movies with the hunger of someone who had found the one place where the world made sense. He loved the way a film could take a nobody and make them matter, the way a story could say, this ordinary person, this person the world overlooked, this person had something inside them worth watching. He identified with every underdog on every screen he ever sat in front of, not as entertainment, as instruction, as proof that the verdict the world had written on him, in a delivery room in Hell's Kitchen, was not the final word. After a brief period at the American College in Switzerland studying drama, where he finally found something he was not just good at, but alive inside, Stallone moved to New York City to become an actor. The year is the early 1970s. He is young. He is hungry. He has a face that doesn't fit the conventional Hollywood template, and a voice that casting directors immediately flag as a problem. And he begins auditioning, and the doors begin closing. What most people don't understand about the rejection Stallone faced is not the number of times it happened, though the number is staggering. What matters is the quality of it. These were not form letter rejections. These were not polite passes. These were people looking at him in a room and telling him directly to his face that his look, his voice, his entire physical presence was not what they were looking for. He was too rough, too specific, too working class for the kind of roles he wanted to play. He was told to consider a different career. He was told acting was probably not realistic for him. He auditioning for every role he could find. He took every opportunity to be in a room with someone who could give him a chance. And the answer, again and again and again, was no. The financial reality of those years was brutal in a way that is easy to say and hard to actually feel. So let me make you feel it. Stallone was evicted from his apartment. He was homeless. He slept for 3 days in the Port Authority bus terminal in New York, one of the noisiest, most chaotic public spaces in America, because he had nowhere else to go. He was not between apartments. He was not in transition. He was on the floor of a bus station with his belongings, homeless, broke, rejected, and still, somehow, go into auditions at his most desperate. And I want you to hold this detail, because it matters. Stallone accepted a role in a low-budget adult film. He has talked about this publicly. He has never hidden it. In his own words, it was either do that movie or rob someone, because I was at the end, the very end of my rope. 2 days of filming, 200. He was not proud of it. He did it because the alternative was not eating. And then he kept going. He found small roles, a bit part here, a line there, a few seconds of screen time, in films that nobody remembered. He was not building a career. He was surviving one day at a time, while something inside him, something that had no rational basis, given his circumstances, refused to accept that this was all there was. By 1975, Stallone had moved to Los Angeles. He had managed to land a small role in a film called The Lords of Flatbush, a breakthrough moment that suggested things were finally moving. They were not moving fast enough. In Los Angeles, Stallone was broke again. His wife Sasha was pregnant. He had no car. He could barely pay rent. And he had a dog named Butkus, a bull mastiff he loved, with the specific, uncomplicated intensity that people reserve for the relationships that never let them down. Butkus had been with him through every rejection, every empty fridge, every morning he had woken up and wondered how much longer he could keep going. And now, he could not feed him. Stallone stood outside a liquor store on a street in Los Angeles and waited. He had made a decision that broke something in him. Even as he made it, he was going to sell Butkus to whoever would buy in, not because he wanted to, because the alternative was watching his dog starve. The man who stopped paid $40 for Butkus. Stallone walked away. He said later that it was one of the most painful moments of his life. I cried my eyes out. He told interviewers. That was the bottom, not a metaphorical bottom. The actual, literal, measurable bottom. $40 in his pocket. His dog gone. $106 in his bank account. His wife pregnant. His career non-existent. That was Tuesday. And then came the fight. A few weeks later. Some accounts say 2 weeks. Some say a month. Stallone went to see a boxing match. March 24, 1975. Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer in the history of the sport, was fighting a journeyman from Bayonne, New Jersey, named Chuck Wepner. Chuck Wepner had a nickname, the Bayonne Bleeder. He was not supposed to last more than a few rounds against Ali. Nobody gave him a chance. The world had looked at Chuck Wepner and made its assessment before the first bell rang. He was a nobody, a placeholder, a warm body to fill a card. And then something happened that Stallone would later describe as the moment everything changed. Chuck Wepner, the nobody, the bleeder, the man nobody believed in, knocked Muhammad Ali down. In the 9th round, he knocked down the greatest fighter alive. And then, he kept fighting. He didn't win. Ali stopped him in the 15th round. But he stood up for 15 rounds against the greatest of all time. And he never stopped swinging. Stallone sat in that arena and felt something crack open inside him. What happened next is one of the most remarkable creative sprints in the history of Hollywood. Sylvester Stallone sat down at a desk and wrote a screenplay in 3.5 days. Not an outline, not a rough draft, a screenplay. He did not sleep properly. He barely ate. He wrote with the specific urgency of a man who had been waiting his entire life for an idea big enough to justify everything he had been through. The screenplay was about a fighter from Philadelphia, a nobody, an enforcer for a loan shark, a man who had been told his entire life that he had no future, who is given one impossible chance against the greatest boxer in the world, and who fights not to win, but to prove to himself and to everyone who had ever written him off that he could go the distance. Stallone called him Rocky Balboa, and he was not writing fiction. He was writing his own life. In boxing gloves, he took the script to producers, and the rejection began again. Not 1, not 5, not 20. Studio after studio passed on Rocky. Some said the story was too simple. Some said the sport was wrong. Some said the character was not commercially viable. The accumulation of those rejections across weeks and months would have ended most people's belief in what they had written. It did not end Stallone's, because he was not selling a script. He was selling the one argument he had been trying to make his entire life, that the man nobody believes in can be worth believing in, that the face the world calls wrong can carry something. The world needs to see that the voice that doesn't fit can still say something true. He could not give that up, because giving it up would not just mean abandoning Rocky. It would mean agreeing with everything the world had said about him since a delivery room in Hell's Kitchen in 1946. And then, finally, a studio said yes. United Artists said yes to Rocky. And then they said the thing that would define who Sylvester Stallone was more than any film ever could. They said, "We love this script. We will make this movie, but you will not be in it." They wanted a star, a name, a face that could open a film and guarantee returns. They offered him $125,000 for the script. Some accounts say $360,000, and they would give it to Ryan O'Neal or James Caan or Burt Reynolds. Any of those men could play Rocky Balboa. Any of those men, except the man who had written in. Now I need you to stop here and actually sit in this moment. Sylvester Stallone has $106 in his bank account. He has sold his dog. His wife is pregnant. He has no car. He cannot pay his rent, and he is being offered more money than he has ever seen, enough to change everything about his material life in a single afternoon, on one condition, that he walk away from the only thing he has ever fully believed in. He said no, just no. He told them he had not written Rocky so that someone else could play in. He told them, in his own words, I knew that if I sold this script, and it does very, very well, I'm going to jump off a building if I'm not in it. They came back with more money. He said no. They pushed. He held. They threatened. He held. And he held. And he held. And he held. Until they blinked. United Artists agreed, reluctantly, minimally, with every possible edge, to let Stallone play Rocky. He would waive his writing fee. He would accept a reduced salary of $35,000. But he would be in the film. And the first thing he did with that money, the first thing, was go back to that liquor store and find the man who had bought his dog. This detail, the story of Butkus, is the part of this story that I think matters most, not the Oscar nominations, not the box office numbers, not the sequels, or the franchise, or the $400 million net worth. Stallone went back to the liquor store. He found the man. He explained why he had sold the dog. He explained what had happened. He asked for Butkus back. The man said no. Stallone offered $100. No. $500. No. $1,000. Still no. The man had grown attached to Butkus, and he understood, in the way that people who hold something someone desperately wants sometimes understand, that he held the leverage now. Stallone ultimately paid somewhere between $3,000 and $15,000. Accounts vary. For the same dog he had sold for $40. He did not negotiate harder. He did not walk away. He paid whatever it took to bring his dog home. And if you ever wonder what kind of man Sylvester Stallone is, not Rocky, not Rambo, not the character, the actual human being, that is your answer. He had just made his first real money, the first significant money of his entire life, and the first thing he spent it on was making right the thing that had broken his heart at his lowest moment. Not a car, not a house, not something for himself, his dog, the one who had stayed when everything else left. Rocky was filmed in 28 days. 28 days. On a budget of $1 million, which in Hollywood terms is not a budget, it's a dare. The cast was unknown. The director was relatively new. The star was a man with slurred speech and $106, who had fought the entire industry for the right to be there. When it was finished, Stallone sat in a preview screening and watched the audience react. He would later describe sitting alone as people left the theater, believing the film had failed, that the jokes hadn't landed, that the fight scenes were flat. And then something happened he did not expect. The audience was waiting for him outside the theater. They applauded, not politely, not briefly. They applauded the way people applaud when something has moved them in a way they did not prepare for. Rocky was released in 1976. It received 9 Academy Award nominations. It won 3, including Best Picture. Stallone was nominated for Best Actor and Best Original Screenplay, only the third person in history to receive both nominations for the same film. It grossed over $225 million worldwide on a $1 million budget. The Italian Stallion, the man with the paralyzed lip, the slurred speech, the 15 schools, the bus station floor, the $40 dog, the $106 bank account, had just made one of the most beloved films in the history of cinema. And in that film's most famous speech, words that Stallone himself wrote, Rocky Balboa says, "It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, how much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. He was not writing dialogue. He was writing his autobiography. Let me tell you what I think. The real lesson of Sylvester Stallone is, because most people tell this story as a story about perseverance. Keep going. Don't give up. Your moment is coming. That is true. But it is not the whole truth. The first truth, the thing that almost breaks you, is often the thing that makes you. Stallone's face, his voice, his speech, these were not obstacles he overcame on the way to success. They were the material. Rocky's authenticity, the reason that film connects with people across cultures, across generations, across every language it has been shown in, is because the man who made it knew exactly what it felt like to be told his face did not fit the frame. The wound was the art. The second truth, knowing what you will not do, is as important as knowing what you will. Stallone knew, with $106 in his account, with his dog gone, with his wife pregnant, what he would not do. He would not sell Rocky without playing Rocky. Not for $125,000, not for $360,000, not for any number. That clarity, that specific, unmovable knowledge of where his line was not stubbornness. It was self-knowledge. He knew that if he crossed that line for money, if he let the need overpower the belief, he would not recover from it. The no that costs you everything in the short term can be the yes that defines your life. The third truth, come back for what you sold when you had nothing. This sounds symbolic. It is. But it is also literal. The first thing Stallone did with his money was not secure his future. It was honor his past. He went back for butkus. He paid far more than made financial sense. He did it anyway because he understood, in a way that successful people often forget, that who you are at the bottom is who you actually are. And the dog he had held through every empty night deserved to be held again. So here is where I leave you. Not with a list, not with 5 steps, or 10 habits, or a morning routine. With one question. What is your Rocky? What is the thing, the script, the idea, the version of yourself that you have been carrying through the rejections, through the bus station floors, through the moments when you could not feed what you loved most? What is the thing you have not sold, even when everything in you said take the money, take the safety, take the version of the life that is available right now, even if it is not the life you were writing for? Sylvester Stallone was rejected by an industry that looked at his face, the face damaged before he drew his first breath, and decided he was not the right shape for the stories it wanted to tell. He did not argue with the industry. He wrote a story they had no choice but to tell. He did not fix his face. He did not change his voice. He did not become something more acceptable. He became more himself, more specific, more honest, more committed to the exact story that only he could tell, until the world came to him. You don't need their permission. You need your script and the decision made on whatever floor you are currently sitting on to not sell it. Not yet. Not until you are in it. $106 in his bank. His dog gone? His wife pregnant? His answer, no. That no became Rocky. What will your no become?